We are recording and I am admitting.
Martina or somebody. I don't have, I'm in my cloud drive. I'm not linked to the one, the 2022.
It's in the same as the
Hit reload. Hit reload.
It says I'm all set. Open folder. No. It ain't happening.
Rick, try clicking the link from the top of the agenda.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, it's the same folder. I just added a new tab for the new year.
Okay. Do it from there. Thank you. Yeah, usually I'll do that. Do it again from there. Because usually I'm able to dial right into. Okay, that should do it. That's better.
Okay, we are ready when you are.
Are we ready? Ready?
Yep.
Okay, is everybody ready? Thumbs up if you're ready. All right, okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our first meeting of January 2022 on this frigid evening. As you can see, we're all remote again, and it's really due to the safety for everybody that, as a board, we decided to be remote. I hope everybody can appreciate that, and also with the fact that you don't have to go out tonight on such a very cold evening to bear with this weather. Just a little bit of update. As most of you may know or have not known, we've distributed test kits in the past 2 weeks. We've distributed close to 200 test kits here at Village Hall. We are expecting to get another shipment maybe at the end of this week, beginning of next week, and we will announce that as soon as we have the details on that shipment that we get from basically the county. Also, I read in the news today that the federal government is now, starting on Saturday, going to mandate that health insurance cover the cost of test kits. So it's been very difficult for many to get test kits at local pharmacies or whatever, and they've been, I would say, expensive in my mind. But now that the federal government has passed a mandate that private health insurance coverage has to cover up to 8 home test kits per month per person. So what that means, if you're a family of 4, you can get 32 test kits in any given month going forward. So I hope that will help eliminate some of the demand on the supply and also help bring the costs down. But as we receive test kits or we get information about availability of testing, we will definitely pass that on. Today, Martina posted out on our site. We got some flyers from the county. I hope you have a chance to go out and read them, because it's what do you do if you test positive, and what do you do if you test negative? Okay, some very good information being explained. It also is a flyer on the Omicron variant, what we know, so some information about that. And then there's another chart that talks about quarantine and isolation guidance. So if you don't have that and you need a copy, please get in touch with us here at Village Hall. We'll definitely send a copy of that to you. All right, so again, welcome everybody. Welcome to January 2022. I'd like to now formally begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance with the flag that is behind me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public comment. If somebody wants to address, please raise your hand and Martina will acknowledge you. Please limit all comments to 3 minutes or less.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, good evening, everyone. And John Russi, 53 Violet Place. Let me say, first and foremost, happy, healthy 2022 to the members of the board and, of course, to the members of our village staff. Hey, just about a year ago to the day, January 12th, 2021, the village board approved amendments to the village procurement policy. Those amendments tied village purchases to the needs of our environment, as well as to the public health and safety of our citizens. I think by any measure, everyone would agree that's a very solid policy. But let me just read one quick sentence from it. Priority shall be given to products and services which reduce or eliminate health risk to employees and to citizens. Again, very solid policy. Fast forward to April of 2021, the village board had the opportunity to exercise this new policy and reject the purchase order of the McKay's pesticide, which we know now has the active ingredient of glyphosate. Fast forward to May of 2021, the village board had a second opportunity to reject another purchase of the McKay's product, but failed to do so. We move to the end of the 2021 calendar year. We get to Thanksgiving 2021, November 24th of 2021. And we have two messages that go out, one from the deputy mayor to the New York State DEC, and one from our mayor to the village residents. And the mayor's message, which was echoed by the deputy's message to the DECs, stated in part, we've reviewed vouchers recording purchases made by the village staff, and we've discovered the Highway and Water Department purchased the unrestricted product called McKay's. My two questions, folks. Why in April and May of 2021 did the village board not exercise the new authority in what was a very well thought out and contemplative policy that would have protected or avoided the use of the McKay's product? And secondly, in November of 2021, in the two emails that went out to DEC to residents, instead of just saying that, or instead of acknowledging that the purchases were made by internal departments, why not add? And we made a mistake too. We went ahead and approved these products. Thank you. I think I did that in 3 minutes.
Thank you, John. Anybody else have a comment? All right, we do have another comment that we received from Ms. Marie Trombini. I'm not going to read it because it is really a repeat of everything that she's been discussing and bringing to the board. I will make a comment, which I've talked to Marie, and she's been invited to a meeting with legal counsel. It is now up to her to get with us to be able to work that we can schedule that meeting and have a discussion with Marie. And I told her I would be making that announcement, so she's very well aware. So we're going to be waiting for Marie to hear back on a meeting with legal. Okay, moving on. I always try to put presentations up front. This month, what Karen, our CFO, has been working on, Karen McLaughlin, is our 6-month financial review. Again, this is our opportunity to share information, which we've been doing a lot on our financial position. And I'm very happy that Karen has taken the time to really prepare a great overview of where we are 6 months into our budget. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen to present.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Bassett, and good evening. And Martina, thank you for putting it up there for me. This evening is the Village of Rhinebeck Mid-Year Review 2021-22. The global COVID-19 pandemic has certainly taken center stage. Volatility in financial markets has accelerated since the discovery of the Omicron variant in late November. While Omicron introduces an added layer of uncertainty to the growth outlook, economists generally expect the new variant to have a more muted impact on global economies than initially feared. As we move forward, it is important to create and maintain stability in other areas of our life. Having a local government that is stable, reactive, and progressive thinking brings a sense of security in these challenging times. As the Village of Rhinebeck enters mid-year 2021-22, let's take a look at where we are. So this is equipment, supplies, and services. The dark green target line is the budget, and the light green is where we are now at the 6-month period. The chart represents equipment, supplies, and services purchased to date. It is important to point out that there is still much winter to go in terms of snow removal and street maintenance. Also, we are being charged by weight, not by the yard, for sand and salt. So it will be interesting to see the difference at the end of the season and how that compares to how we were billed the prior year. If you look all the way over to the left, the general administrative cost, those also include legal, engineering, and the purchase of the village streetlights from Central Hudson, which was $88,000. That is why that line item looks a little bit, that's why that graph looks a little bit more than 50% at our 50% mark. Employee benefits also appears to be more than the 50% mark because the employee benefits is higher at this point because we recently paid our annual payment to New York State Retirement. Okay, so then the next category, we're going to take a look at payrolls and salary. This chart shows salary budget versus 15 pay periods of 26 paid. There are 26 pay periods. This chart represents 15 pay periods, or 58%. There are 11 pay periods left, or 42% for this fiscal year. As per the amounts in the chart below, the departments have this budgeted percentage remaining. The general administrative, 47, planning, building, zoning, 40, police court, 40, highway, 40, and yes, water and sewer is not 541, it is just 54%. All are very close, some are slightly over, which means from now until the end of this fiscal year, 5/31/22, overtime must be monitored closely and kept to a minimum. Our next category is revenue. So I prepared a chart for the budget versus the 6 months actual collected. This revenue chart shows revenue received at this 6-month mark. Village taxes always look good as they are collected all at once in June. They are made whole in April. Unpaid village taxes in November were sent to Dutchess County for re-levy. So we will always make our budget on that particular line item. So Dutchess County sales tax and mortgage tax. The first payment of 2 mortgage taxes was surprisingly higher and almost what we budgeted for the entire year. And this is true as in for all municipalities, not just us. The fire contract for fire protection with the town of Rhinebeck is paid in February in one lump sum, which will be forthcoming. Planning, building, and zoning fees are up as building activity in the village has greatly increased. Other revenue in the other revenue category includes cell tower rental, cable franchise, department income, and interest earnings. For all revenues, we need to monitor trends and observe over the next several months. So this next slide shows the water fund and the sewer fund revenues at the 6-month mark. The water and sewer funds are self-sustaining, meaning they're funded by user fees, paid monthly and quarterly. The revenue charts for water and sewer are easier for month-to-month monitoring than the general fund, which is funded up front with taxes. So they do appear slightly lower than the 50% mark because the June, July, and part of August is accrued, and then at the end of August, it's reversed. So we really get a better picture after we book the accruals. Okay, so now we'll take a look at all funds and do a fund balance analysis. So if we look at all funds, the above chart illustrates the revenue received, which is the gray line, expenditures made, which is the orange line, and the annual budget, which is the blue line. The water and sewer funds look good at the 6-month period as revenue is still exceeding expenses. The general fund has more moving parts. Some expenses are not made until close to the end of the fiscal year, and conversely, some revenues like the fire contract and the cable franchise are not received until late February. So the analysis of the fund balance takes into account capital reserves, 25% of, takes into account that we're going to maintain 25% of our investments in securities. So when reviewing the fund balance analysis, I always stress and point out that at the year-end total, year-to-date revenues and expenditures bring us through December 31st, 2021. These numbers will change monthly and bi-weekly as expenditures are made and revenue is received. The departments have been very interactive and responsive to ongoing budget process. They check in with Chrissy often when making purchases. Again, I just want to point out that the fund balance is the net position. It takes into account accounts payable and accounts receivable. So at this point in time, we have a good net position in all 3 funds. So just to recap, this is a team effort, and going into the winter is like uncharted waters, as the ever-changing weather can make or break a budget. We are experiencing more ice storms than snow, it seems. Therefore, the need for salt, sand, and road treatment has increased. As the water and wastewater treatment plants, the collection and distribution systems infrastructure ages, repairs and replacements must be in our focus. What we can do is diligently monitor, do studies, and anticipate future needs. Doing this will allow us to budget, forecast, and prepare for future growth. An update on the American Rescue Plan funds. We received the first half of the payment of $130,901 and have spent $20,098 on a smart VMS police road display for emergency notifications and $10,000 to assist the Church of Messiah and community outreach for the much needed food banks. All of this brings us to the importance of preparing and planning. The next budget season for 2022-23 will start this month with a review of the current budget and the scheduling of individual department budget meetings. The tax cap has increased from 1.23, where it was last year, to the full 2% allowable, which is good news going into this budget season. The Village of Rhinebeck Board and staff are committed to assist you, our residents, to fully understand and engage in where your tax dollars are spent and how your water and wastewater fees are supporting the facilities. So I thank you, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Nice job, Karen. Is there any questions for Karen?
I do have one
From the
question.
board.
I do, Karen, one question. Fund balances seem to come in a couple different flavors. And when we did our fund balance policy, that refers to the unassigned fund balance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. It's based
so
on the, right.
Right. So when we commonly refer to the fund balance, it's really the unassigned fund balance, not the net position at the moment.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then that is probably best to do that in like August, after July or August, when the books are closed. And that's more of a year end, like when the board discusses the surplus or deficit of the fund balance, that's more like done at the end of the year after the books are closed for that year.
Okay. Thank you. Lovely presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question too. Karen, What percentage are we paying into the retirement of salaries this latest round? Do you know?
I have to look it up. I don't have it at the top of my head.
Okay.
And I don't even want to guess, so I will look it up and let you know, okay?
Okay.
So I have a question. The personnel line items, and I know that we've been having a great deal of overtime expenditures because of the COVID cycle, and everybody working a lot because of everybody going out on COVID. You know, even if we are very aware of what happens for the next 6 months, are we going to be over budget on personnel?
I don't think so. I think everyone is really close, but I think good to make sure maybe in 2 months, like in like the beginning of April or the middle of April, we'll kind of break down this last 6 months again, if that would be helpful, and then we can.
Just as we continue to stay on top of it, but
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
And Lydia,
thanks, Karen. And that was a great presentation.
Thank
you.
Lydia, if you remember back 2 months ago, I brought this to the board's attention. That we needed to very closely monitor overtime. You know, and Karen and I have been looking at that frequently in terms of where we're at. In terms of, you know, if we need to pull the trigger to make sure that, you know, overtime is scheduled, unless it's an emergency, we're ready to do that and actually do the analysis to say, can we approve overtime? So we're not to that point where we are going to say we need to prove it. We're leaving it still to the department heads to manage. And those department heads have been given authorization to approve overtime, right, as they feel seeing fit. But if it, as Karen has mentioned, we need to watch it. And also for ourselves, we need to watch what we're doing, you know, in addressing people to work. Multiple meetings, evening meetings. We went to twice a month meetings for quite some time. Very necessary, great idea, things to do, but that also, we don't plan for our administration staff to have a lot of overtime. Right. So that also drives overtime to the other end. So again, all these things we as a board need to be cognizant of when we make these decisions, that it has a ramification, because our staff is great, but they spend a lot of time in preparation for these meetings and attending these meetings and making the presentation of the data available to us.
Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you. Thank you both. I'm
sorry. Can I just wanted to make one more point that in our analysis, we did include the vacant position in the departments that was in. So it is included in the department report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Well done.
You're welcome.
All right, moving forward. Lydia, you're up. Appointment members to the Comprehensive Plan Committee.
Oh, yes. So I am doing a lot of thinking and a lot of work on the Comprehensive Plan Committee. This appointment process is going to go in waves and stages. And tonight I want to appoint the first 7 members, including the chairman or the chairperson, to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. I have, with just gathering interest from people who have told me that they are interested, I have 35 people who want to engage in some way in the ecosystem of the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Mostly village residents, a few members of the town, a few town residents, and a few business owners or managers. That is before I've even gone wide on the village list to ask for a generalized solicitation for participation. And so, needless to say, this is a wonderful opportunity that a lot of people are very interested in engaging in. I know that there's a bunch of people watching. I don't know if all of you know this, but the town has also decided to update its comprehensive plan. And so these committees are going to be working at the same time, which I'm very excited about that because, you know, things don't stop just because there's a geographic border. And so I'm excited for the town and the village to have an opportunity to both be updating our own plans, but also be aware of what the other is doing and figure out ways that we could probably work together a little bit more closely in certain areas, like the environment and other places. So that is exciting. The first, we have up to 11 members of this board or of this committee. And tonight I would like for the board to approve the first 7 members, as I mentioned. And I have worked really hard to try and make this committee as diverse as possible. And what I've done is I've found an incredibly diverse group of people in terms of age, interest, expertise, politics, and length of time living in the village. I am disappointed that it is not more diverse in some areas, but I'm hoping to resolve that with the next 4 appointees and with a fulsome subcommittee plan. So without further ado, I would like you all to approve as chairperson a gentleman named Matthew Johnston, who is a international leader in facilitation and executive coaching. His life's work is having high functioning committees change the world. And I am delighted that he has agreed to be the chair to this particular committee because this is the work that he does. Also on the committee, I'd like to appoint Tim Decker, Jeff Cotter, John Clark, Lou Turpin, Lisa Fountain, and Elijah Bender. Any questions?
I second the motion.
Oh, thank you.
All right, now we can open. Is any discussion?
The one thing I would say is if somebody has matters in front of the boards that may be affected by any of the decisions they make on this, we need to have like a strict recusal process.
Yep. So I've been thinking about that, and I had a quick chat with legal counsel about it this afternoon. And the one thing that there is about the Comprehensive Plan Committee is, unlike the Planning Board or the Zoning Board of Appeals, it doesn't have final authority on anything.
Yeah, it's advisory, I know, but still, I mean,
it's advisory. But I
just to follow the spirit of what our ethics code says. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And before we get a bunch of questions, for everybody who has expressed interest in engaging in the comprehensive plan, you will be contacted in the next week or two to have conversations with either me or the new chair about how in particular you would like to engage. And then also sometime in the next week or two, we're going to put out a larger call for participation. And I am especially looking for someone who is willing to be helpful, who has experience in project management, ideally certification in project management, but experience in project management is very welcome.
So Lydia, as you and I discussed, we're going to put this committee is going to have some meets and bounds on it.
Yep. Right.
It can't be free flowing and dump the whole apple cart out and try to rebuild from the beginning.
Nope.
There's been a lot of great work done.
Yep.
The previous comprehensive plan still is valid in many ways because of the work that was done there. And there's a lot that can be pulled from there and just maybe tweaked or modified to bring it current with environmental policies and or the current climate condition of the village, which may have changed since 2011. But the goal is not to start fresh.
Right. Well, and this is an update to the existing plan. And I'm delighted that John Clark has agreed to be one of the people on this committee. He, with his extensive background in planning, as we all know, has a lot of good work on that. He also worked on the 93 plan. Lou Turpin also worked on the 93 plan. Tim Decker was on the village board when the 93 plan was passed. And then obviously the other four people are younger and haven't been engaged in the village for that long, but are very excited to take the existing work and just update it. And that then is a good charge to the five of us, because the 93 plan had really lofty goals, and then in 2001, 2002 there was a zoning amendment passed that in some respects went into direct conflict with the 93 plan. And so a plan is only as good as the activities that happen afterwards. And so the work that is going to be done at the Comprehensive Plan Committee then needs to be executed at the legislative level by this board. So it's obviously a two-step process. Joanne Gelb asked me to repeat the names, and I will do that. The chairperson is a gentleman named Matthew Johnston. And then after that, we have Tim Decker, Jeff Cotter, John Clark, Lou Turpin, Lisa Fountain, and Elijah Bender.
So Martina, have you kind of put a tentative schedule in mind in terms of trying to turn a product?
I'd like to see a product within the next 18 to 24 months with real, work and milestones being achieved the entire way. So, there's going to be some things that are timely. I'm hoping to have the subcommittee and the issues revolving around outdoor dining stood up, fairly immediately. And then things that don't need to happen in time with the spring can happen after that. But this committee is very much designed to walk and chew gum at the same time. There's zoning amendments that we know need to take place to our zoning code. And so, getting those done now makes a lot of sense. So there's going to be multiple things all happening at the same time, which is why it's important to have, all of these people involved and engaged.
Can you give us a hint what the zoning amendments are that need to be done right now?
There's like
besides 5G.
Right. Well, 5G is happening right now. This isn't with the comprehensive plan, but I'm currently working on the historic district with a working group. But
oh yeah,
just a few things involving like things that the planning board has bubbled up to the surface. I do not have the list right now in front of me, but things like how close outbuildings can be to each other, and the setback rules concerning outbuildings, where if everybody's showing up with variance requests asking to be 5 feet from the line, so like that kind of stuff. But this is obviously going to go through a committee process, and it's going to go through a public hearing process, and there we go. Joanne has asked another question just for me to remind the diversity on this. So Joanne, there is diversity in this group. I know it's 6 men and 1 woman. I'm fully aware of that. And I'm hoping to resolve the gender disparity with the next 4 appointments. But this is very diverse in terms of age, interest, expertise, and length of time living in the village. And in some respects, those factors are just as important as the sort of more obvious ones of gender. Yeah, Gary?
Yeah, so Brandon asked a question about possible zoning. I would believe that as this committee starts addressing one of the most important issues, which is affordable housing.
Yep.
Yeah, within the village, I could foresee possibly changes to our code as maybe new ideas, fresh ideas come forward with that.
Right. I mean, we did talk about affordable housing quite a bit.
Yep.
4 years ago, but there are some things in the code that a lot of people probably don't know are even in there that are designed to allow rental units and things like that.
Well, and affordable housing was, one of the big priorities of the 1993 master plan as well.
Sure. I mean, they did a resident survey and they asked people if they were fans of affordable housing, which is, of course, everyone is fan of affordable housing. It's a tricky thing, especially now when we have such price inflation. But
right. Well, I mean, it wasn't even just, are you interested in affordable housing? It was, is there a need for affordable housing? And the 93 committee very much came out in favor of, not just desire, but there is a huge need. And then that pressure has only increased, put it that way, in the last
well, if you have a
years.
subcommittee on that, I'd be happy to meet with them and explain some of the things that we did put in the code 4 years ago that were designed to address affordable housing.
That would be great. Thank you, Brant. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Lydia, if folks watching right now are interested, where should they go?
To the brand new webpage that Vanessa Bertozzi set up this morning. Thank you, Vanessa. Yep, under on the villageofrhinebeck.org, we have a new webpage under initiatives for the comp plan committee. And there, the comp plan committee has an email address, but what I'm most excited about is it has a survey that allows you to fill out your personal information in addition to what you're interested in, historic preservation, zoning laws, local businesses, and what role you're interested in having on the committee, whether it's on the main committee or subcommittee leadership or membership on a subcommittee or just being a helpful human. We need helpful humans. So there's also a fact sheet. There's a link to a fact sheet on what is required from all of those different roles. So all of the information is there. And we will sort of continually update that web page as more information comes out.
Okay, I'd like to call for a vote to recognize the first 7 members as identified by Trustee Slavy for the Comprehensive Plan Committee. So as we get back into doing this in a virtual environment, we'll do it by roll. All right, so Lydia, I'm going to start with you as the liaison.
Aye.
And I'll go in order then what I see on my screen. Trustee Lewitt. Trustee Nuneker.
Aye.
Trustee Bertozzi.
Aye.
Mayor Bassett, aye. So very good. I'm so excited about this. Let's go.
Me too. Oh, this is great. Thank you all. I'm really excited.
All right, next on the agenda, I think, Lydia, you're going to talk about the small wireless facility code, correct?
Yes, I am going to talk about it, and I'm going to welcome Brant's participation as he feels like interjecting. But Brant worked closely with a small working group to generate an amendment to our zoning code for 5G small wireless facilities. They worked very hard to make sure that it would abide by current Supreme Court law on this particular issue, as well as match up carefully with what has been done in the area in terms of a fee structure and burden of the regulation. Our lawyers have gone through it. They cleaned it up. And I would like to now start the process of tasking our engineer on a seeker order and sending it up to Dutchess County Planning for their review. So to that end, I would like to hopefully schedule it for public hearing at our first meeting in February. And if we do have a second meeting in January, the 5 of us could have a workshop on it. But that's a little up to us how we want to handle that. Brant, do you have any thoughts there?
I like the idea of having a workshop discussion involving the public, and just so sometimes we get to public hearing and people say, hey, there's a real problem with this, or I have a real problem with this, and then you guys were willing to vote on it tonight. So I sort of don't like to ambush the public with a draft. The 5 of us have all looked at this, and we're pretty much from what I understand, pretty much favorable toward it, but I think we should present just for discussion to the public and before we do go straight to public hearing. But I would be really eager to schedule a public hearing date tonight too, because I want to get this completed. Yeah.
And we don't have to close and vote on vote on the same day of the public hearing. If there's something that comes up that's important, we can keep the public hearing date open to get that resolved and then resume the public hearing, as time is needed.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's, if you make something more strict, don't you have to re-up the? I think you have to.
No, if we don't close the public hearing, we can keep it open.
You can change the draft. I don't.
Yeah, it's not final until we vote on it, right?
Yeah. Right.
And we have to resubmit to the county. Then I don't think that's actually correct, but.
Yeah, we would have to go through the secret process.
We have to go through that 30-day process with the county planning approving.
Yeah, but what Lydia's talking about right now is to start the secret process immediately and the.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So either way, we would have to, if we make a change to this, we'd have to go back through that.
I actually had a couple of quick comments too. I don't need to go over it tonight because we're having a procedural discussion, but.
Yeah, I mean, we can, obviously the version that is in all of our inboxes at the moment doesn't have to be the version that goes to Dutchess County Planning. So,
All right, so Lydia, do you want to break this up into multiple motions? Do you want to vote on the task order first? Or do you want to vote on moving this?
Yeah, so as part of the secret process, engineering needs to develop a seeker application. So, or seeker, what is it? A seeker review?
Yeah.
The EAF. So, that's going to cost $1,500. We currently have it in, the building planning and zoning budget for, fees non-personnel. So it can come out of there, but that money is a little already spent this year. So, we can pull it out of there just for the moment. But so I'd like to.
Before we go into discussion, do we have a second to approve the task order?
Second.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, is there any other discussion on the task order?
No, I can get you
and have that started today as soon as possible.
Yeah, I can get you my comments like tomorrow or the next day.
Great.
What's that?
Can you let me know the actual wording of this motion?
To approve Ty and Bond's task order for $1,500 to start the seeker process on the 5G draft law.
Martina, there's a number attached to the task order that we should put in so that we keep them. I don't off the top of my head, I don't know what that number is.
Okay.
025.
There we go.
And are we calling it 5G or small wireless facility?
Let's call it small wireless facility.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I think this is great. I think what the work that's been put together, again, my comments, the things that I care about, one are, and Lydia and I spoke about this in terms of the fees, that the fees that are assigned in there are commensurate with other municipalities in the local area so that we don't get priced out. And probably the most important thing to me is the aesthetics. And this draft really went to great lengths to address those aesthetics. But we got to make sure that, the small wireless facility is important. It's important for us to get it right for the village of Rhinebeck and the needs, but it's also important for us to make sure that we don't let happen what I think happened to us prior with broadband in our area and have us, being subject to, one provider and only one provider and et cetera. So.
Yep. I think we've struck a good, I think we've struck a good balance on that, but time will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty darn good, frankly.
Yeah.
All right, so do this we're going to take a vote by roll again. Lydia, I'm just going to do it in the order. Lydia?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Brant?
Aye.
Vanessa?
Aye.
Gary? Aye. Okay, that approves the task order.
Great. So I'd like to propose a motion to set a public hearing for the small wireless facilities code for February 8th. Thank you. And do we want to do it at 5 p.m. or do we want to do it at 6 p.m. or when do we want to, how do we want to do that?
I'd like to start when we have public hearings a little bit earlier to still give us time so we're can focus, and maybe augment that maybe 5:30ish to start for this one rather than 5 to give people time to get home and log in and be remote.
Great. So for February 8th at 5:30 p.m.
I think that we should give at least to how long it's going to be open for, so that we ran into this the other day that we had a public hearing, I think on the marijuana laws, and it was actually quite short. And then the concern was some latecomers going to come in. So should we say it's going to last at least until 6 or something like that? Just make people know that there's a definitive window that they have to get to. If somebody gets home at 5:45 and the meeting's already adjourned.
So how about 5:30 to 6, and then I guess our regular board meeting would start at 6.
Right.
Okay.
Who seconded?
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, any other discussion? All right,
So
we'll go. Grant, do you have something?
The tandem issue to that is we're going to have the workshop on the 25th, or the working discussion on the draft on January 25th.
We have not scheduled a second meeting for the month of January at this time yet.
Well, what I'm saying
On a
is,
whole special meeting, we can discuss that and announce it. We have time, but I think I would like to take that offline to discuss either a need for a special meeting or a second monthly meeting.
we did
So
discuss
Brandon,
that.
So Brant, are you saying that you definitely want to have like a public workshop on this before we have a public hearing on it?
Yeah.
Okay, you'd rather not have the public workshop inside the public hearing, and then if we need to change it, then we just extend the public hearing to another meeting?
Yeah, we could do that, but then we're going to have a heck of a, if we have a lot of input from folks, we're going to have a heck of a long meeting, but.
Well, then we have a long meeting. Or we continue the public hearing to another date.
Is there any objection to having a meeting on the 25th, Gary? I mean, I thought this is a standard practice now.
I know, I think public input is good. I would just like to, be respectful of the overtime and everything that people are putting in to schedule these meetings. If we really need one, then do it, but I would like to have that discussion offline and see if everybody's in agreement on what we need to do. Because it combines either a second meeting with a workshop. And that's what my question is. Do we need a second meeting in the month of January like we were holding last year? Or are we just going to do a special meeting on a workshop?
Oh, no, I mean, that could be combined if we have other issues that come up.
Yeah, and I just want to make
January is a slow month, but.
I want to make that decision if we need a special meeting or a combination of special meeting plus another board meeting.
Got it.
And we have time to schedule it.
Yeah, I think if we don't need to have a special board meeting at the end of January, then we could sort of combine the workshop with the public hearing, and then if there's a lot of interest and concern, then we'll continue the public hearing.
Or we don't continue the public hearing. We just have the date, but we can look at the procedure aspect of, and say, listen, we got too much and there's too much change and we got to restart the seeker. We got to restart the county approval. We got to restart all of this. There's no need to have a public hearing.
There's that too. Yeah.
All right. So right now we've set the public hearing. We'll have a discussion on whether we need a second meeting in January, which I really need to discuss with the board on what our plans are for doing that.
Do we need a vote on the public hearing?
And so, yeah, I'd like to vote on moving it, and we can always change. All right,
Okay,
so Lydia?
Aye.
Rick? Brant?
I'm gonna say nay, because I'm confused about this procedure. We have to notice up the public with a draft, with a public hearing, and then we're gonna have a workshop. I mean, we should have the workshop before 10 days before a public hearing, but so I'm gonna say nay.
Vanessa?
Aye.
Gary, yay. All right, so let's move forward, and I promise to get to you all on whether we need to schedule a second meeting for January. A village board meeting. All right, next on the agenda. Next on the agenda is resignation of our previous Department of Public Works Building Zoning and Code Enforcement Officer, John Benton. Received on December 16th, 2021. Effective December 16, 2021, I, John Fenton, resigned from my position as the Building Zoning Code Enforcement Officer and Superintendent of Public Works. Signed, John Benton. I'd like to make a motion to accept his resignation as effective December 16th. Thank you, Lydia. Any discussion?
I'm gonna abstain. I've had nothing to do with our end of this process, so I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. All right, so any other discussion? All right, Lydia,
Aye.
Rick, Vanessa,
Aye.
Gary, aye. So miss you, but thank you for your resignation, John. Next, open a permanent position for Department of Public Works. I opened this discussion last month and agreed to table it to this month. This month I put out onto the cloud. Last month I had the civil service announcement. This month I put out the revised, which is the combination of civil service and what we think the village responsibilities are. I'd just like to just briefly go back over some things that, this previous position was filled. The previous position of part-time was filled by part-time responsibility that was combined with building, planning, and zoning. Well, this was a great idea at the time. It was a good start at providing the oversight and the planning. It was not sufficient to meet the needs of the village with a lot of tasks left uncompleted in a lot of areas, not just DPW, but building, planning, and zoning. So this is a civil service job appointment. It's not a union appointment. This is an appointment but through civil service. And we've identified the civil service code to be able to do that. And the suggestion I brought forward before was that this should be in a range of $45,000 to $50,000 a year. This time, last month, it was temporary because things have changed. We did not know the current status of the previous DPW. Now we know the status. So this time I'm looking and asking for a permanent position to DPW. So since last month, and we introduced this, lots of our staff have come forward to me with and made recommendations for this position. And those include our chief water plant operator, our CFO, our village clerk, several of the trustees. And if we're not careful, people who want to add, who had made suggestions to add to this job, this could become more than what any person could possibly do. So we have to be very careful in terms of what we put in terms of the requirements. This job does not take away the responsibility of any of the current supervisors in assigning daily tasks. For instance, running the water plant, running the wastewater plant, running the highway. These guys all do a great job on keeping our plants operation, running the day-to-day activities, and scheduling the work. So we have great supervisors who can do this. What is needed is someone that can really, in my mind, keep an eye on the big picture. As one person mentioned to me, we have a lot of catch up to do. And with that, I've been thinking about that, and I've generated a list of some of the tasks that have been brought to my attention, and some that I've been made aware of, and some that I've noticed myself. And these aren't jobs in terms of the job description. The job description and the work activities, that's at a very high level. What I'm talking about now are some of the tasks within those that I think should have been done and were not done. And a very important one is Asher Dam. We have a dam here in the village of Rhinebeck that is required to be inspected, is required to be inspected on a bi-monthly schedule, is required to have engineering inspections on a yearly schedule, and all of that work just never seemed to be pushed forward, even though it was on the list. So since we appointed Kathy Tetmeyer, I've been working with her on trying to get some of this work and get caught up on it. But this is really, as Kathy and I have spoke, is really a position that we both believe that should be in the DPW's realm of responsibility. There's several things within the water department, the wastewater department, highway department. We're in the water department. We have a branch aware and is going to be working on, we have a lead pipe identification and a replacement plan. And we have a valve replacement plan. We just had a major water break, 500,000 gallons a day. And when we went to isolate the system, we could not exercise the valve. And it turns out we have a lot of valves in our system that have not been exercised and need repair. So we need to focus on some things. We need that preventative maintenance plan and that list of identifications so that when we get working through the budget, we have a plan in place to work on those things. I've mentioned to the board on several times, Champlain Hudson Power Express, Chippy as it's called. Champlain Hudson Power Express, that's the power line that's coming down the Hudson River. They're going to be digging a 7-foot deep by 4-foot wide trench right in front of our water intake. We're going to be the ones that are going to experience all of that sediment and turbidity being churned up in the middle of the river, and that could impact our treatment facility. Hudson 7 is working very closely with the developer, but this is going to involve a lot of work in terms of working with our water treatment plant to make sure that if we can get an approved pilot, or if not, when the actual work is done, that we have a facility in place that our water is not contaminated. We have a lot of projects coming on board. We have Gratismere. We have the hamlet of Rhinebeck. We have a senior housing project at Wells Manor being proposed. We have the Father Brogan Center. We have all of these things which are in a state of flux that, is going to need our work as board and as trustees and the mayor, but our department heads, but also probably a good focus by having somebody and I in the big picture, having a DPW. Same way with wastewater. We have these projects. We have an engineering firm that will work very closely with all of us on these projects. But as we saw in the last engineering project, it took a lot of work, and I'm really thankful for the work that our DPW did at that time and Karen, our CFO. But it was a great effort on their part to help make those projects successful. We have checklists and submission for yearly plans. And recently there was a checklist that was a year late that we just submitted this week. So somebody has to keep an eye on these things to make sure that we're getting them done. We have equipment plans, inventory assessments, inventory replacements. We have a great document from the Dutchess County Wastewater Authority on recommendations. We're working very closely on the water, but there are some suggestions, even though not as many, but for our wastewater treatment plant. We have our highway facility, all right? We just found out this week that Dutchess County Transportation has put us on the agenda for the Route 9 corridor study. Yahoo! This is great. This is kind of something that we can all look forward to and try to say, how can, when this bridge gets replaced, how can we make the village of Rhinebeck and the traffic flow through the village better? Same thing. We have drainage issues. We scheduled, I don't know how many catch basins this year. None of them got done, right? So who was looking at we just didn't get it done, in terms of these drainage issues that we need to address that are in front of us. We have preventive maintenance plans. We have, mileage reports. We have CHIPS reports. We have working with DOT, DEC, OSHA and the requirements. We have building concerns. We have contracting. We have overseeing of the contractors. There's just a proliferation of minute stuff in my mind that this is why I'm saying we have the big catch up, right? And doing that in conjunction with many of these projects, I think is going to involve the needs of an extra person. And many of you have expressed that. So with that, I'm making a motion to approve a civil service assignment for the village of Rhinebeck for the position of DPW with the overall responsibilities, which I mentioned that are out on the cloud. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. All right, discussion.
So I fervently believe that this should start out as a part-time position. I understand there's a lot of important projects. It is important that we get a DPW. A lot of these things just aren't that time consuming. I mean, I just wrote down your list. The Asher Dam thing is just a coordination with engineers. You know, we can't have a DPW doesn't know the fitness of a dam or can't create an evacuation plan or anything like that. The lead pipe thing, you know, we talked about getting an intern to do it. We really shouldn't have someone at a higher level that's doing a lead pipe inventory. It's really just the opposite. I think the way we should look at this is look what we have, look at the needs of trustees too, because, you know, I mean, I'm doing a lot with water and wastewater. And like I've said before, we've always had trustees that were the liaisons to both water and wastewater that did quite a lot with this. You know, I've said before, the irony of some of these big engineering projects is that when we bring in an engineering firm, they have to liaise with somebody, but they really do all the contract administration, and they do with the benchmarks and the payments, and they do the construction management piece. I'm doing Grassmere because I didn't think we should really turn it over to the public works person because of my background and the things that I do. You know, I've been working a lot with Grassmere. I mean, I spoke to somebody over the holidays who is a human resources director for a Fortune 100 company, and I went over this stuff with him. A lot of this stuff, although it's an exhaustive list of activities, it's on a day-to-day basis is not super time consuming. I mean, we have to do some hand holding with the street department. He suggested that's a half-hour meeting in the morning. You have coffee with the guys and you say, we're doing catch base, we're doing this, we're doing that. And then you circle back and make sure that they're on the right track. I've said over and over again with water and wastewater, it's about 5 or 6 hours in DPW work a week. I really don't understand why several of you are convinced that this is a 40-hour week job when we had somebody doing this part-time. We had allocated 20 hours a week to building and zoning, and then allocated 20 hours a week to DPW with the person who was doing this before. And I know that person was getting pulled in to building and zoning quite a bit. So I don't see it. I see the importance of having a public works director, but I think we should start out slow and just start out at 20 hours a week. And by the way, it's going to be super difficult to find a good fit for this position because they're not going to know one thing or the other. We might be looking for somebody that has construction management experience. They're going to know nothing about water. They're going to know nothing about sewer. But my management philosophy is that I don't like the idea of bringing in someone like, you know, I like the idea of having Jack Welch run General Electric. He doesn't know how to build a jet engine, but this person is going to need to be like have digger experience, catch basin experience. It's got to be practical. It can't be someone that just has, you know, general business knowledge. And I've said before, this isn't going to be a talismanic solution. But I think we should start out slow at 20 hours.
So, Fran, I hear you, and
it is 3 times. It's 3 times the expense to bring in someone for an extra 20 hours because you have benefits.
And Grant, so we currently have an open position. We have benefits available. We're not exceeding our budget. We're going to stay within our budget for this position. So
I don't believe that that's possible if you throw in building and zoning.
So we'll get through that. We're going to have that discussion next.
That's an extra expense.
It's not an extra expense. We've gone through a very detailed discussion with Karen, our CFO, to make sure that on all of these aspects, we are within our budget and not exceeding our budget.
When I say within the budget, I mean within the expense that we had with the last person who's making about $31
and that's exactly what we did. That's why I'm saying we don't have we're not putting more money in the budget to fill any of these positions. we're using the money that we have left within the budget.
If,
in
wait,
the
wait,
last position.
if you take building inspection, ZEO, and the other zoning piece, and then you add public works, that's gotta be more than what we used to pay one person for $31 an hour. Has to be.
Well, it wasn't $31 an hour, and it
It's approximately.
it was more like $35 an hour. And at least on my side of that, that's exactly what I'm telling you. I'm not going to go over budget in terms of personnel dollars by splitting John's position into 3. And in terms of, yeah.
And we're not going to go over budget by adding a DPW into as a full-time position either. We've looked at the budget between now and year end, and we have more than enough money at the salary rate of between 45 and 50 to pay somebody for the 11 pay periods that are left.
Quite candidly, I can't do somebody at 45 to 50. They're not going to be.
Why don't we see what's out there? I mean, like, I don't see any, I don't see any reason I don't see any reason to not see what we could find. You know, like,
what's the hesitation in starting out at 20, especially if you're talking 45,000? This is just not, this type of person is not going to have that sophistication and I don't mean sophistication as far as, you know, using silverware. I'm talking about the development of this person as a manager, is you know, understanding disciplines and stuff. It's just not enough money. That's what the lower tier people make already. I can't use somebody at that level.
The hesitation, Brain, is we've already been here at part-time and it didn't work.
Yeah. It wasn't enough.
That isn't true. It wasn't enough. No, none of the people that in the departments have told me this. It comes from this group here.
No,
I sense a detachment from
I've
what's
heard
going
it.
on with
I've
staff. I really do.
So Brant, I've heard it from Water and I've heard it from Highway.
No, you haven't heard it from Water. You haven't heard it
I
from
have heard it from Water because I'm capable of talking to people in the water department.
I think you're blur. He has never said that he needs a lot of management help. He said he needs level of time commitment
at an upper level.
Look, you've sold me you've sold me on the idea that we need a public works director. I'm talking about the number of hours. They simply don't need it.
So my larger concern is with the idea that we can find someone who would be dedicated, who like is capable of doing the job that is required in 20 hours a week. And I don't think that is true, which is why I am part of this advocating for full-time position. But there's also this sort of attitude that, you know, people can have like 6 part-time jobs and do do any of them well. And what I am saying is that I don't think that's appropriate. I want someone who is focused on the needs of this village and only focused on the needs of this village. I don't want someone distracted by Red Hook or Tivoli or Clinton or any of the other opportunities that could come their way as part of, you know, a part-time catch-all of making sure that everybody's making enough money to pay rent. And if we can find a person who is capable of doing, if we can find someone who is capable, who we can pay appropriately to do this job for the village of Rhinebeck, I think that's really important. And speaking to your point of the role of the trustees, I mean, you and I have this argument a lot, and I think we're just agree to disagree at this point. But like, I don't see the role of a village trustee as someone who's like down in the dirt in the departments. I mean, like, who is leading this village? Who is providing the vision and for the future of this village if we're supposed to be spending our time like in the bowels of these departments? I am stretched.
You've always done it that way. This is what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is that you need to let me finish. Because Brant, what I am saying is that villages no longer function the way they have in the past like 20, 30, 40 years. We have DEC requirements coming down at us. We have other environmental requirements coming down at us. We have regulations from everyone. We have, I mean, I had, as part of a conversation with a constituent, someone asked me, she was like, why do building inspectors have to inspect all of this stuff? Because the state requires it. So we are under so many different requirements by all of these different regulatory authorities. And like, I don't have the expertise to know what that is. And voters shouldn't expect me to have the expertise.
Some of us do.
You need to let me finish my sentence. And so therefore, I think our role is to be the leaders of this village. I've been working really hard on comprehensive plan stuff, really hard on historic district stuff, really hard on trying to engage with our constituents on the best way forward, really hard on like creating connections and partnerships, public, private, with nonprofits. I want to engage with the schools. And you know what? When I try and do that in addition to like managing all of the day-to-day in the bowels of these departments, I am stretched so thin. I can't even do my full-time, my like job that pays for my mortgage. And so like, the deal is like villages, at least this village, does not seem to function the way that it did 10, 15, 20 years ago, in the way that people are like, this is how it always happened. And you know what? Like, we're not in the this is always how it happened. We are now heading into the future where there's environmental concerns, where there's all of this stuff that we, as the elected leadership to the village, need to think about. And we need to spend our time on that. And we can't just magically pull it out of the air. That takes effort, and it takes time, and it takes communication, and it takes coordination. And it doesn't involve monitoring whether or not an engineering task order has been completed. We can hire someone to do that. I don't think I was elected by the village population in order to monitor engineering task orders. I mean, like, I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that when someone voted for me, they didn't say, hey, I want to vote for Lydia because she's going to be really great at that. Hey, I voted for Lydia because I think that she's going to be really good at helping identify how this village can evolve into the future. And that is what I see my role as. And like, you and I can disagree. Yeah, and you and I can disagree on that. But like, I do think that when there is a regulatory body that is landing all of this stuff that like this person in the DPW superintendent role needs to know, that it's like dangerous in some ways to require that level of expertise and that time out of a part-time elected body whose job is not to be thinking about that. And so like, you know, this has been the conversation we've been having for a while. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to express that, like, you know, there's a difference between elected leadership and legislative role and, you know, passing laws and guiding the future versus the actual nuts and bolts of doing the work of the village. So
okay,
I think that's where I am.
I think that's fine for you. I really think I don't want you to have anything to do with public works. Now, we talked about someone with program management experience in a different context. I have it, okay? And I've been in business for 35 years. And if I'm a liaison to a department, we have 3 plants. This budget that we have is like about $1 million almost for both water and wastewater, and then $500,000 for the street department. You sit in front of these plants. This is the village business. This is what we do. That's why I like being here. That's why when I campaign, I actually run on the fact that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and coordinate. I understand that there's all sorts of, you know, different EFC requirements and things like that. We just did a vulnerability assessment for the wastewater, for the water plant, and it was so technical that Brian Alex had to be the liaison with our engineering firm because he's the one with that technical expertise. So the leads are already doing quite a bit. I'm just doing a little guidance, a little management. You know, Gary and I work, Gary especially, on personnel. Nothing is broken. We've been scrubbed by an engineering firm with the water and wastewater plants, and it was a big thumbs up. There's nothing. I understand that some in fact, historically, because I've been here for so long, the zoning liaison has always been exactly how you described yourself, but that doesn't mean that we all have to be that way.
So Brent, let's talk about if you've been involved, where is the valve replacement plan? Why are so many valves not functioning? If we have a major water break, we don't have a plan. We don't have a budget in place. We don't even have a budget in place to address it.
Let me answer that question. We can't exercise old valves. You have to exercise the new ones. So we just did. I wouldn't even touch a valve if it wasn't like, if it were over 8 years old. So yes, we can develop a plan for exercising the valves for all the new stuff. That's easy.
When was the last time we took upon ourselves to really camera a lot of lines? We did it for the new project, but we haven't done a preventive
No, we did it for the wastewater. We just did. We just cambered the wastewater lines. There, Gary. I mean, it's not.
Who's overseeing all the programs and activities in the various departments? Who collectively is looking at that?
How much cross-pollination do we have?
Grant, let me finish. Who's collectively looking at that big picture and coordinating activities between the plants? I stood out here over Christmas and had to direct water, wastewater, and highway to get them to work together to merge to do one project. That shouldn't be me doing the day-to-day, as Lydia mentioned, down here managing that at that level. I'm on call 24/7, and I acknowledge that. First little snowstorm, I get 3 calls, right? Who's handling those taxpayer issues, that we need to respond to, not as a liaison, but as a overseer of public works? Who's available 24/7 that you're going to give a 20-hour part-time work job to do this? Who
sold me on the premise. Sold me on the premise. I get it.
Who is going to communicate with our CFO on a weekly basis and keep them abreast of how we're doing on spending money, where we're going, how the budget's working, what projects are they planning to address, so that we have an appropriate picture of our budget and how we're spending it. And we're not waiting for something to break to do it. We just spent, what, $40,000 to fix a water main break? It's big. Breaks happen.
That water main is 80 years old. We're always going to have these issues. That's not
right. So
that's our infrastructure.
I can go on and on and on.
We can all go on. You're not saying things that require a lot of time. You're talking about. You guys are going to vote for it anyway. This is heartbreaking to me, and I'll tell you that. And I mean it. You could start out at 20 hours a week.
Been there, done that.
No, you haven't. No, we haven't.
So John was paid for 20 hours a week to be the DPW
John had
superintendent.
too many hats. He wore too many hats. We all agree with that.
Well, but one of his hats, which was at 20 hours a week, was DPW superintendent. So you're saying that at 20 hours a week, he didn't do a good enough job? I mean, like, what are you?
Job though. Things are not broken.
But he didn't do enough. Like, this isn't just like staying on top of the current to-do list. This is also planning for the future.
Because he wore too
many
hats.
The thing, well, right. Yeah.
He had 5 hats. I wouldn't have created that position.
One of those hats was 20 hours a week as DPW superintendent.
I get it, but he still had the other hats, and he was drawn in a lot.
His other hat was the other 20 hours a week. So, like, forget about the 20 hours.
He suggested it was more with zoning. We used to have a building inspector for 20 hours a week. And I think we brought him in at the premise that he would be 20 hours a week plus about 10 for ZBA. There wasn't a lot left over.
All right. This was meant to be a factual discussion, not an argument, right? And it's really turned into more of a debate rather than a factual discussion.
This is a deliberative body, Gary. That's what we do.
We brought the facts forward, say that there's a lot of things that we're missing in the big
Gary,
picture.
your facts aren't more valuable than mine. This is a deliberative body. I'm confused by what that comment meant.
What comment?
You brought facts forward and I didn't.
I'm sorry, what?
We're here to deliberate, Gary.
I know, and I want to be factual and not argumentative. That's what I'm
sorry.
trying to say. And we can deliberate. That's what we should do. We should deliberate. This is an important decision.
Are you saying I'm not being civil? I'm loaded with information.
I didn't say that. I just said let's all move forward
deliberation, argumentation, I don't know what you call it.
All right, whatever you want, Brad. Okay.
No, it's whatever you want, Gary.
Hey, Rick, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, so yeah, I've been kind of sitting here for a little while. Brandon, I've had this discussion kind of off campus a bit too. And I disagree with Brant about the volume of work that needs to be done. Especially, I think the way our DPW is structured right now. There was a fair amount of stuff that John was not getting to. I think that we have struggled with our contracting, and that's something that really is going to require somebody to be there and to take care of those things. I think there is a lot of, there's just a lot of, it's funny talking about the bigger things, there's just a lot of details that are going into our public works. And one of the problems that I felt like we used to run into was that we had a kind of ad hoc problem, that we used to solve our problems on a very ad hoc basis. And I think one thing about having somebody as a full-time job is that we can get away from having that ad hoc basis, because it seems like for a long time we put a lot of Band-Aids places, but really we should have been thinking more, we should have been thinking longer term. I do think that between the departments and the other parts of the village, there is enough to do for a 40-hour week. I think there are, there's, as was said before, there was stuff left undone, and I think there are also new jobs to be taken on. So, you know, Bran, I appreciate the fact that we agree that there's a need. The question is, how much of a need do we have? And at least from my perspective, watching the highway department, there's a lot of stuff, especially with having a working foreman, having somebody above that to handle the administrative stuff, so that our foreman can be out basically turning a wrench or driving a truck and not worried about a lot of the other minutia. And that's a big bite out of Scotty's job, and some of it he's just very hard to get to. So I do believe that there is 40 hours a week worth of tasks to be done.
I had a description of Scotty's job, or a village street superintendent. Leads and participates in street construction, leads and participates, oversees excavation, grading, drainage, embankments, leads in patching and repairing streets, assigns tasks to check subordinates, maintains time cards, worksheets, equipment, directs ice and snow removal, may operate construction equipment, and does related work. So a person like that, they need a little guidance. So that's your half-hour meeting a day, according to.
It's not a question of the guidance.
Hold on a second. That's that half-hour a day that I said from my friend who ran a human resources for a Fortune 100 company. The powwow at the beginning of the day, and then following up in the afternoon to see if everyone's doing the right thing. Every single person we have knows exactly how to do their piece of the job. We don't have a bunch of people who are completely inexperienced at their functions.
I'm looking at it in a slightly different thing. It's not a question of doing that. Yes, the folks that we have, but right now we've been asking them to do more because we don't have a DPW in place, and that has been a real negative effect. And as I look at the constellation of things that need to be done, I do think that there is a full-time job there. There's a lot to do with contracting and ordering and overseeing and getting these projects underway. There's a lot of paper that needs to be pushed around these days. We need somebody who can, we're looking at doing a tree commission project. We need somebody who can work with New York State Department of Transportation, who's going to be able to work with them consistently, because we're going to be working along, hopefully we'll be working along some of the major corridors. Doing that kind of coordination, I think, along with all the other things, is going to wind up being more than 20 hours a week. That's my analysis.
I think somebody spending 2 hours a day with that department, and with procurement also, because that's important, would just do wonders.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Because as Lydia pointed out, I am in it with water and wastewater 6 hours a week for both combined. And if you look at I could read you I'm not going to belabor this about the job descriptions of the directors of the departments, but they're in charge of all those things too. And they do quite a lot of public works already. Contract procurement and everything themselves. I mean, Brian Pacamo gets 3 bids on most things.
Well, I can say that having, at least certainly in the highway department, our highway department doing that kinds of things, that takes away from the live tasks that they should be doing out on the street. And we really need somebody to be up there doing that kind of stuff. And, I wonder, well, as I said, somebody to coordinate all this stuff. I think that highway, the level of responsibility that is in the highway department. We have a group of guys that really work, and they know how to work, but it's all the other stuff that piles up in terms of getting the right contractor in the right place at the right time, making sure that the contract is good, that the contract is let for the right thing. We have.
I know what it's like. I do that stuff. I'm in it. Like the.
I'm in
tank removal. The tank. It's not that hard. It's just not that time consuming. I bring maybe 2 or 3 items to buy. To you guys every month. There's not a hell of a lot of purchasing going on. I mean, there's some. I'm not seeing it. What I would like to see is somebody who's going to be organized, who's going to come in, chop. They're not going to be. The worst thing you can do is bring in someone who's going to over.
Brand, I really hope you're right that it is only a 20-hour job, but right now I do not believe it is.
Okay.
And if it is, then we would have to address that, because if we see that we
address it.
Yes, you can.
No, because they're going to make it. Here, let me read the memo from my source. It is important to remember that every incumbent in every position will fill his or her workday with the assigned task, even if the work could be completed in half the time allowed for its completion. If someone occupies a full-time position, but the position's accountabilities could be completed in 7 hours a day, the incumbent will stretch the work to be done in 8. Work expands to fill the time allotted to its completion. Once we make the decision to go full-time, it's going to be too nettlesome to go back.
Brant, I think we're all really pretty aware of that phenomenon. we've all seen it in places.
I know
that we work.
Yep, we do, and a lot of us have management experience. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I've tried. It's really disappointing to me.
We appreciate your perspective.
Well, yeah. And I just think it's interesting that, we had someone at 20 hours a week for all those years, and it wasn't enough. And
nobody told me that from the staff level ever.
Well, I had a very good conversation with your chief water plant operator.
Gary, he did not ask for. Yes, so have I. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. We had a motion. We had a second. We've had a discussion. Now it's time to vote. I'm going to go in order. Lydia.
Aye.
Rick.
Aye.
Brant.
Nay.
Vanessa.
Aye.
Gary, yay. All right. Second thing I'd like to approve as mayor, I can delegate this task, and I want to delegate the hiring task. I'm willing to delegate the hiring task to 3 of you, if you're all willing to do this. Lydia, Rick, and Brant, I'm willing to, if you guys would be the hiring committee, I would appreciate that. And I'm willing to delegate that responsibility because that's within my authority to do.
Sure. I'm willing to help.
I'm willing.
I just don't know how we're gonna avoid a public meeting, the public meeting rule.
Well,
Hmm.
I mean, I thought about that too, but at some point we need to figure this out to be able to interview and get the right person. And
We could just try to
We could stagger it. Yeah, we could stagger
Yeah,
it.
stack them. Yeah.
I believe that the 3 of you are very smart and could figure that out.
Okay.
So, therefore, I'm appointing Trustee Slavy, Trustee Lewitt, and Trustee Uniker. Brant, was that a yes from you?
Yeah, no, I definitely want to be involved
Okay.
if it's gonna happen.
So I'm appointing the 3 of you to be the interviewing committee for this position. We will post it immediately on all of our media sites to be recognized and accept applications. Just to remind everybody, this is not a union. We do not have to offer to the union. It's a civil service position, and we can go direct to posting. Thank you. Okay.
We do have some raised hands. Just wanted to point that out.
Martina, is there some, was there hands? I see a big blob of 9 and I don't see any. Yeah, I mean, if somebody has a basic question, we can ask a question, but this is not public comment time. Who was out? Who has their hand up?
Diane Britton asked about why a DPW would be involved with the Father Brogan Center. And Diane, the answer to that question is with water extensions, as well as with the potential of extending the wastewater line.
For whatever
Right.
it is.
Or whatever
we
it
don't
is,
know.
which we have absolutely no idea. But, you know, if there's a potential of needing more infrastructure to that building, then this is going to be something that the DPW is going to have to think about.
Susanna, do you have a question?
Trying to find the. Got the.
Who else has their hand up, Martina?
I don't see other hands, but I do see a written question from Joanne Gelb asking to please explain how earlier it was said that overtime has to be watched because of the budget, but there's still room for hiring a full-time person.
So there's we have 2 different budget items, Joanne. We have an overtime budget and we have a payroll budget. So what we're looking at is the payroll budget and our expenses within our payroll. 2 different factors. And we now have an open position. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's get to the next important subject, which is the appointment of permanent part-time building inspector and code enforcement officer. Lydia.
So ever since, I believe last January or February, we've had as our temporary part-time building inspector, Ken McLaughlin, and our temporary code enforcement officer, Justin Noyes. And with the resignation of the previous office holder, I would like to make a motion to make those 2 gentlemen permanent part-time building inspector and code enforcement officer. They're delighted to be part of the team on a permanent basis, and you know, we're beginning to do a lot of work to in that office that I will discuss more as part of the building planning and zoning report.
I second the motion. Discussion?
This is continuing at the same rates that they were.
Continuing at the same rates that they were, and you know, even looking forward into 2022. Yeah, Sorry,
And
that was not a full
how many hours
sentence.
are they, Lydia?
So code enforcement and building inspection are both budgeted at up to 10 hours a week. They are currently not using all of that. Sorry. Hold on. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I just deleted that.
Lydia, the position was not to make them accountable for their time, but put them more on a permanent part-time salary.
Right. Yes. So with Justin, we're going to wait to do that until 2022. For Ken, we're going to bring him to a $15,000 a year. For the building inspector, we're going to make him a $15,000 a year salary, which is not adding to that line item, but it's just converting it from an hourly rate to a salary rate, which he would prefer because, you know, it's impossible right now for him to document the hourly rate when we just jump on the phone with him in the middle of the day. So he'd much rather be on a salary. And so we did the math and it's pretty much exactly the same thing. So for the building inspector position, that would move to a $15,000 a year job. As for code enforcement, that stays at an hourly rate. The code enforcement officer, that stays at an hourly rate. And we're going to talk about making that a salary in 2022 for the same reason, 2022, 23. And then the municipal code inspector, which is the official name for the boots on the ground building inspector, the position currently held by Brian Connolly, that is also an hourly rate, and it'll stay that way.
Good plan.
I thought,
And
Lydia, correct me, but what I had thought I had heard was that we were going to take the ZEO and we converted that to a
salary.
A salary as well, only to, for the stance bank, that we can get more time with boots on the ground if we do that.
Right. I had a conversation with the building inspector and the ZEO about that, and they'd like to wait for the next fiscal year to do that,
Okay.
given some health considerations that's currently going on with the code enforcement officer.
Okay, very good. I wasn't cognizant of that change, so thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. And just to reiterate, the reason why we split this one position into three was because we were having a lot of difficulty with the fact that enforcement was being overseen by the same person doing the enforcement. And so this way we have enforcement overseen by a different human. And so there's more checks and balances on complaints and concerns that can be addressed by the head building inspector. And so far that seems to be actually working out really well for village residents and business owners, for property owners. A lot of long-standing, outstanding issues have been resolved. And between the three of them, it costs less than the one person. So I'd like to make that motion to make those positions permanent.
I seconded it, so we were in discussion. Any
Okay,
other
great.
discussion?
Well, to make that one position right now, part-time inspector and code enforcement.
So part-time building inspector, who's in charge of the office, part-time code enforcement officer. So both of them were temporary, and now I want both of them to be permanent.
Gotcha.
And they were temporary because the person holding that office still had that job. So
Right.
now that that person doesn't have that job anymore, we're going to make them permanent.
Gotcha.
Permanent as much as anybody's job is permanent in this world, that everything changes in a heartbeat.
Or a sneeze.
Right. God.
Okay,
Too
let's.
soon?
I'm going to go for vote. Lydia,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Grant,
Aye.
Vanessa,
Aye.
Gary, aye. All in favor, so motion passed. Thank you. Okay. Resolution for 2022 village election. Martina.
So our village election is coming up on Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. I am requesting that the board make a motion to approve the village hall as the location for this election on Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, from noon until 9 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
I make a motion to accept. Accept it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lydia, any discussion?
Sounds like a good day for an election.
Yeah, we're gonna do, Lydia. We ready for vote or is there discussion?
Have we decided whether it's going to be in the firehouse again or upstairs?
That's still an ongoing conversation. My biggest concern, obviously, is COVID, but the weather. So I'm still evaluating those different things. I do still plan to have people, though, wipe down in between each voter and follow all the other COVID protocols that we have for the past few elections.
Thanks, Martina.
And that's our regular noon to 9 slot.
Correct.
And I know maybe early, do we stand on the ability to get absentee ballots? Same rules in effect as for the general?
Those will be the same, yes.
Okay.
Martina, will you coordinate with Ryan Dowden on that one because there's a planning board meeting that night?
That will have to wait, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go for vote. Lydia?
Yeah, aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Grant?
Aye.
Vanessa?
Aye.
Gary, aye. All very good. Thank you. Okay. Special requests. The first one is the Rhinebeck Hudson Valley Half Marathon 5K. This event is being put on by Kyle Elizabeth Irwin, Fit Feet Adventures. It's been held before. This is the 6th annual Rhinebeck Hudson Valley Half Marathon and 5K. There will be no full marathon this year. It's raising awareness for funds for the Brian Aneurysm Foundation in loving memory of Elizabeth, Liz, and Irwin, who, as we all know, was a very active participant in our community. The half marathon course is sanctioned event by the US ATF certified courses as races, and so the event attracts runners and their families from over 20 states across the country, and even some abroad. The date is May 21st, 2022. This has been approved by Sergeant Dunn for coverage. I'd like to make a motion to accept Kyle Irwin's Feet Adventures marathon, Valley Half Marathon and 5K. All right, Lydia.
Aye.
Rick.
Aye.
Grant.
Aye.
Vanessa.
Aye.
Gary, aye. Okay. Next one is Runaway Inc. This again is a repeat of the previous races that is held by Matt Lyack. The event date is October 9th, 2022. It starts at the Dutchess County Fairground. It's a big race. He's anticipating 1,000 people from 9 a.m. to noon. There'll be 3 vehicles, there'll be stations. This has been approved by our village PD as well. I'd like to make a motion to accept Runaway Inc.'s application for the Fall Foliage Half Marathon and 5K on October 9th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. All right, any other discussion? Gonna go around the screen. Lydia?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Grant?
Aye.
Vanessa?
Aye.
Gary? Aye. All right, all in favor, approved. Next, minutes approval for 12/14/2021. I saw some modest corrections being sent into Martina, which I think Martina has, our village clerk has accepted and made those changes. Any other changes needed to be noted? I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes approval for 12/14/21. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vanessa. Any discussion? Around the room, Lydia,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Grant,
Aye.
Vanessa,
Aye.
Gary, aye. Thank you very much. All approved. Treasurer's report. Karen, are you still with us?
I am. I'm right here. Okay, treasurer's report is for the period ending 12/31/21. The tax collector's account ended the month with $685,103.80. General fund ended the month with $218,934.62. The water fund ended the month with $263,319. And the sewer fund ended the month with $624,579. Vouchers presented for payment to include the prepaids in the general fund total $163,718.40. In the water fund, $56,489.61. In the sewer fund, $34,299.27. And we have in the water system upgrade grant prep bill for $2,602.50.
Do you need a
Do you want to
motion?
authorize?
Yes. I'd like a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Do I have a
Oh,
second?
Actually, just the vouchers at this time.
Yeah, well, sure, just
Okay.
about, sorry.
Second.
Thank you, Brant, for a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Just Lydia,
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Brant,
Aye.
Vanessa,
Aye.
Gary, aye. Very good, thank you.
Okay,
Next,
an
Karen.
operating statement is provided for the revenue and expenditures through January 11th, 2022. Water and wastewater billing and adjustments as signed off by Trustee Nunaker are presented for authorization.
I'd like to get the water and wastewater adjustments approved as submitted, changes.
Second.
Thank you, Rick. Any
Aye.
discussion?
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, it's formality. Lydia,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Brant,
Aye.
Vanessa,
Aye.
Gary, aye. Thank you.
Okay, I have just two budget amendments this month. One is for the street paving line item to increase that by 20,000 and take that from contingency line 1990-04.1, which after that would leave a balance in contingency of 22,393. The other one is in the streets highway 164004 to increase that by $616, which is offset by an insurance recovery for fire damage to that building.
Second.
Make a motion to accept the amendments. Rick,
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
I think we do this by show of hands here. Any discussion?
Oh.
All in favor,
Yeah.
say aye and raise your hand.
Hold.
I did have a quick discussion.
Yeah.
Was that we
Right.
had concerns about our pothole paving bill at the last meeting, and I did have a very successful discussion with a contractor who reduced his bill by over 10% to us. We also talked about the level of work that was done. This time around, there was a lot more milling and actually rebuilding of the road subsurfaces, so that hopefully some of these patches, or not patches, hopefully some of these rebuilds will be lasting a decade, if not more. Most of the time when we patch, we're looking at a 5 or less year life cycle. Hopefully these will be a lot bigger. We also talked a bit about making sure that we have proper cost controls in place as we move forward. So it was a fruitful discussion, and as I said, we agreed that he knocked slightly over 10% off the bill. So just let you guys know that happened.
Thank you.
All right, so
Yes, thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, Okay, I have one last item, and that is budget 22-23. As announced in my mid-year report, we're starting a new budget season, and uploaded to the cloud is the budget calendar. So you can take a look at that. But what I did want to do was go over with the board, possibly scheduling out some of the budget workshops. And I was looking at keeping them on a Tuesday, since you're accustomed to Tuesdays. February 22nd, water and sewer. March 1st, highway and fire. March 22nd, police and general. The tentative budget presented to the board is due by March 31st. So the individual departments will have been done. And then on March 29th, review of the total budget, and then a notice of a public hearing, the tentative budget available to the public for 2 weeks. And then the regular meeting of April 12th, have the public hearing, which is required to be done by April 15th. If satisfied, the board can adopt the budget at the 12th, but they must adopt it by May 1st.
I don't think we need a motion on the meeting agenda, do we? I mean, does anybody have any discussion on the dates or changes?
I love that we could keep it on Tuesdays.
Yeah, that's
for
helpful.
consistency.
If you do approve it, then Martina can put it all in one public notice, so that, I mean, if we need to change it, we can change it. But if you want to approve the workshop dates, then Martina can do the one public notice for them.
Right, that's true.
I just want to footnote, I don't know where we're going to be with open meeting laws, / remote meetings / in-person meetings. I don't know what's going on, but one of those meeting dates does overlap with the planning board meeting. So if we are all back in person, then we'll have to figure that one out. But the planning board, as far as I understand, is not planning on coming back into in-person meetings until they are forced to by the state government. So, so we'll probably be back in person before they are, but I just wanted to make sure that we knew that, you know, one of those meetings is happening at the same time.
Okay.
So Lydia, that brings up an important point. So what I'm hearing is Governor Hochul is going to be announcing either late this week or early next week an executive order for future open meeting laws for municipalities.
Great. Okay.
So I think we'll get an update on that very soon, coming from the governor's office.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? I'm going to make a motion to accept the budget workshops for February and March as identified by our CFO. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Brant. All right, all in favor, say aye and show raise of hands.
No.
Aye.
Aye. Right, thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, that's it. That's all I have.
That's it.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, next we're going into Department Reports, Police Report. I'll read this into the record. Total number of incidents in the town was 24. Total number of incidents in the village, 93. Total number of tickets in the town, 13. Total number of tickets in the village, 68. Total arrests were 0. Total number of accidents were 9. There's been extra coverage for traffic control for brush pickup on the main drags. We had the Santa Claus event, and we had quite a few snow ordinance tickets passed out, which is to remind people that from November to March, there's no parking on village streets from 11 p.m. till I think it's 6 a.m. So it's just safer for everybody if they can get their cars off the street, and we can effectively make the streets clean for all of our traffic. So appreciate everybody's cooperation with that. Just some little bit of update on the Santa Claus stats. We had a number of calls for service, 14. We had 3 accidents. We had 1 vehicle towed, and we issued 14 parking tickets during that event. That's it for police. If anybody wants to see reports, are up on the cloud.
Gary, do we have a number of attendance to Santa
Number
Claus?
of what?
Number of attendees to Santa Claus?
No, we don't. We have no, as you know, there's no official way to try to figure that out. It's done by guess and by golly, and it's comparison to last year's. But the great minds that are looking at this had pegged it at between 8,000 to 10,000 this year. And that's just a guess because we don't have no official way of tracking it. Okay. Compared to 2 years ago, it was the same formula was used, and it was between 10 and 12,000.
Okay.
Again, just a guess by great minds, not mine. Okay, building planning and zoning.
Building planning and zoning took in $7,815.50 in December. As Karen mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, building planning and zoning fees are well above budget. We've almost made the entire amount that we budgeted for revenue in the first 6 months of the year. As I have been announcing in every single one of these reports for the last few months, building permits are up. The work that this office is doing has almost doubled from the previous year. And I asked Ryan to pull some numbers for me. This is for calendar year. I know that we work on a fiscal year, but just for calendar year 2018, the office issued 108 permits, 2019, 112, 2020, 140, and in 2021, 200 on the nose. So the work of that office is there's a lot going on in that office. It needs help. This is one of the things that Ken and I are working on. We need to digitize a lot of what's going on in that office. If you've visited lately, there's just stacks of paper all over the place. So we're going to be undergoing a digitization project, a really solid organization project in terms of making sure that there is a solid digital footprint for each parcel in the village, with all associated records, communications, building permits, blah, 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 blahs. So, and to that effort, Ryan is doing a magnificent job, but there's a strong chance that in 2023, we will need to add a second person to that office, so that the work of that office can be done more effectively. We're missing a lot of deadlines, and customer service could be better. To that end, Chrissy Amy has been helping as minutes, as a subcontractor to the planning board and to the zoning board for minutes generation. She requested a replacement over the summer, and we have found a wonderful replacement, actually. A lovely lady named Miranda Wyatt is coming in to replace Chrissy as a subcontractor. So she's now tasked with catching the planning board and the zoning board up on over 4 months worth of meeting minutes. We're not in violation of state law because all of those meetings are recorded on Zoom, but we don't have currently a written record of those meetings. So Miranda's going to be working on that. And then as there are opportunities potentially for her to dig in a little bit to helping with this digitization program and organization program, she may help with that as well. The other thing that I have been working on is I convened a small working group to think about the expanded historic district. As we all know, in late 2019, the state expanded the village historic district, and in January of 2021, the federal government followed suit, and they expanded both the footprint as well as the criteria of what is a contributing building. We are used to buildings built up to 1930 inside a smaller boundary area, and they expanded it to include Platt Street, Oak Street, Mill Street, and some connecting blocks. And they also expanded the criteria to up to 1970. So the number of contributing buildings went from somewhere in the 300s to mid 500s. So it's a huge expansion of the district, and we are now we've convened a small working group to think through recommendations to bring to you, the board, on what to do with our own historic district overlay and how to handle that. So recommendations there forthcoming. I'm hoping to get something that we can discuss and hold a series of public hearings on, hopefully by February or at the latest early March. But that work has been fascinating, to be perfectly honest. Just the five of us the five of them plus me digging into it has been really, really interesting for all of us. So I'm looking forward to reporting to you on that once we have some results. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Lee. Just a couple comments. As most of you know, I attend a monthly Dutchess County Supervisors and Mayors Association meeting, and you talk about building permits. Every municipality has a heavy load right now. This is not unique to the village of Rhinebeck. This is across all of Dutchess County, and probably maybe larger, but this is reporting from, what I see and what I hear talking to all the other municipalities on their workload and the impact that it has on, as you mentioned, customer response, delays in getting permits and so forth. It just seems there's just phenomena going forward with just a lot of work in the valley right now. So kudos to our group for trying to stay ahead. I'm glad we put together a team that we did when we did.
Yeah.
That was ready.
Me too.
That was ready to handle this. We acted quickly to keep the gears moving a year ago, and it's paid off. So thank you. And just another comment on the documentation process. This is going to be using Laserfish, which is a product we've already approved and have budgeted for within house to get training on and everything. With this team that we brought, they're bringing that skill with them. With some help from the other municipalities. We're not going to be inventing the wheel here. This is going to be using a proven system that works in a lot of ways for a lot of municipalities. So again, we're benefiting from the experience that this team is bringing for us. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to the staff of the Building, Planning, and Zoning Office. They're doing a really, really good job, frankly.
Rick, Highway Department. You're muted, Rick.
So comfortable. I would like to reiterate the mayor's message that the highway snow ordinance is now in effect, and there is no parking on the streets overnight. And it has been causing a problem. And I took a look at the ticket record, and it looks like there's about 24 tickets were issued for overnight parking. And one of the issues is that when you leave your car there, it means that you have to plow around it. So we have, we both makes more work for somebody to come back, and it makes for more dangerous streets, and it's more dangerous for our crews as well. And with that, I just want to remind people that brush and leaf pickup finished on December 1st, as it does every year. You should not put your brush and your leaf materials out after that. And the reason why is that our trucks get converted from being able to haul materials to being outfitted for plows and salt. Otherwise, the department's been out salting mostly, not so much plowing. They've been out helping the water department with the 2 water main breaks. They are grinding stumps. So if somebody has a tree stump that is in the median, basically the area between the sidewalk and the road, and you'd like to get that ground, the village does do that. And you should reach out to either the department or to Martina, and they will put you on a list to do that. There was some maintenance to be done on the loaner Poughkeepsie truck, which is running fine, and they have integrated the 2 new trucks into circulation, and they are both being used for snow plowing and salting as necessary. They seem to be running just fine. That's it.
Rick, do you want to mention anything about tree pickup?
It's been kind of going on as hoc. I've not heard an end date.
Okay, so we really not have said it, just to remind everybody, we are in the process of picking up your Christmas tree. You need to bring it to the curb. We won't go in your house and take the decorations off, so we appreciate if you bring it to the curb, fully undecorated with no tinsel, no lights, no tree stands attached to it, and we will pick up that tree. We will turn it into much usable mulch for our residents, which take advantage of this. The goal is to continue this through the month of January, and after that we will be done. There is an impact if heaven forbid we get a major snowstorm and trees are out. It makes it more difficult when the plowing is plowing, but the crews are trying to stay ahead of that as best as possible right now. So at your earliest convenience, get your Christmas tree out to the curb.
It goes in the pickup truck.
Yeah, it goes in the pickup truck. All right, Brant, water and wastewater.
Water, just normal maintenance. We buried the propane tank at Violet Hill. Pumped out one of the flock tanks after we or repaired it after we drained it. There was the big water leak, and I want to read Brian's summary of the water leak. Beginning on the evening of December 18, we were losing north of 500,000 gallons of water a day. We were not able to find the leak. A lot of us were running around looking in odd places to try to find the water gushing out. Out of desperation, I called in leak detection for assistance. After working through Monday night, I found the leak in the woods on the hillside between the water treatment plant and Long Dock Road. Now, they did also, with the leak detection, what they did is that afternoon when they were brought in, he put sensors all over the different parts of the village to isolate the area where the leak was, and he nailed it. Like, he really knew the exact, Brian may have found the leak, but he had discovered the area where it was leaking, because when the pumps are off at night, the water is gravity feeding from the tank, and that's when it's real quiet. And if you hear gushing from somewhere, then so the sensors did work, and they did locate the area of the leak. Brian arranged with an environmental consultant company, C3ND, to deliver a 20-foot section of pipe and the couplings, because he didn't have time to go out and do it. He was working on all this other stuff. After the leak was discovered and digging was arranged, we attempted to shut down the section of the transmission line using the existing valves. They failed to close all the way, so a line stop was required. So Brian called Jack Forelli company out of Connecticut. They were the only ones in the area who could do a line stop of that size. By 8 a.m. Wednesday, the line stop was in place. Paul Matthews Excavation performed all the digging for this event. Paul's knowledge and expertise was extremely useful throughout the entire duration of the emergency, and Brian never lost confidence in that aspect of the job. So it actually cost $40,000. Leak detection was $2,300 approximately. C3ND for the pipe and couplings was $6,200. The line stop was $14,200. We don't have an invoice yet from Matthews. And $12,000 in lost revenue from losing 2 million gallons over that period of time. So, but that's like, really, we haven't had a leak like that since Irene. The next day, probably because we turned the pressure back on, we sprung a leak in front of the village hall. So,
Center Street. How's that engineering report going on Center Street, Brant?
They just started the survey on.
Okay, great.
I was going to say, like, he said that for the calendar date December 23, which is actually the amount of times we've had a leak in front of Village Hall and Center Street. Not quite. God. That was my joke. So, with wastewater, we finished the greenhouse. It looks good. And we're working on, we got that sludge hauling contract in place last month, and we're working on improving the quality of the solids.
Is there any update on the fee stuff for the water department? Sorry.
Yeah, Gary, I forgot what you were involved with that. What did you say the other day? What was going on with that the other day with the fee?
With the
Was that Karen that was in the loop on that?
Hi,
With the fee analysis from Ty and Bond?
Oh.
Yeah, I think we have like I think we're gonna have a conference call on the 19th.
Oh, that's
but
it. Yeah.
I'm still forwarding information. I just sent him a lot of our tables and our rate tables and some historical data. So they are definitely working on it.
Are we optimistic that this is going to be done in time for, budget time?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
The answer to that is yes. So that we can have that information. We are having a review on, I think it's the 18th, Karen, but
okay.
Either way, 18th, 19th.
Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me, but yes, okay. Very
So
good.
also a lot of those capital items that they're probably not going to hit in the next fiscal year. I mean, I hope they do, but we'll see.
I mean, we can only put the ones in that we know of right now.
We're gonna, exactly.
I'd just like to offer kudos to the water department on them, working diligently to help find that leak. And then not even batting an eye and jumping right back in the hole to fix the one in Center Street. They were just phenomenal. Their attention to the detail, their attention to plan, they knew what to do. They knew how to do it, right? This is what they do. This is what they're prepared to do. So really thank you to Brian Alex, who really led that and, coordinated a lot of that effort. I was down there at the leak when it was exposed. It sounded like an airplane once that leak was exposed. It just sounded like a jet engine flying over you with the amount of pressure that was coming out of a hole the size of maybe a tennis ball. And in itself, with so much pressure, was digging another hole, right? And so the earth was caving around them as they were digging it out. And fortunate, they were able to patch it and not have to cut the pipe and put in a new section of pipe, which would have taken a lot longer. I'm thankful for all the residents who we sent out a water advisory notice, that listened, and we saw a slight drop in our demand, but throughout the whole time we were able to stay ahead of it with the leak with our water treatment plant, and we never lost pressure in the system, which was great, because that really means a lot if you have to bring that water line back on, when you bring that water line back on. So again, kudos to Brian Alex and his team. They did a great job.
Yeah, and it's great that we have that local expertise with Matthews to help us in a situation like that.
Yeah. Okay, Vanessa, environmental.
Great. So at the beginning of the month, I released our second annual climate progress report for the village, and that is up on the climatesmartrhinebeck.org website for anyone to take a look at. And it's basically a review of all the things that we accomplished and our progress as we work towards silver certification. The big news is because you all approved our compost pilot at the last meeting in December, we have launched applications for that pilot. We're looking for 100 households that want to take part. So folks should sign up and learn more about the project. Again, go to climatesmartrhinebeck.org and you'll see a button to get more information. We're also hosting an online info session this Saturday, January 15th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., where we'll just be answering questions and giving an overview of the plans. Also, thank you, Gary, for signing the contract with the Ozone, which will be our hauling partner. I'm also hoping that we'll get our Flex Tech energy study of Village Hall in time for budget season, so we can have a sense of some potential projects for Village Hall. Our Flex Tech application was approved, so we will be getting that 50-50 match to pay for the study. I also want to thank Chrissy, who has been very diligently inputting all of our utility bills and energy usage into an EPA tool called Energy Portfolio Manager. And what this is going to do is allow us to make good on the policy, the benchmarking policy that we passed last year. Benchmarking is basically publicly reporting on our energy usage and being able to compare ourselves year over year, how we're doing, and maybe even compare ourselves to other similar municipalities. So I hope to be able to generate those reports really soon and share those publicly. And yeah, the rest, if you want to know anything else, you can check out my monthly report. One last thing I wanted to say in regards to the compost pilot, you may have gotten a flyer at your door. We had these amazing Interact students from the Interact Club, part of the Rotary Club's kind of youth core, and they helped us go door to door, handing out flyers or leaving flyers at doorsteps to try to get the word out about this composting program. So a huge thank you to those students.
I was wondering why there was no postage on it. I was thinking, how did we get this? So now I know.
So Vanessa, are you willing to give a number of how many have signed up so far?
We have had over 100 people sign the form, fill out the form. Now the form is also capable of receiving information from people who already are happily composting in their backyards. We're asking people to also fill out the form if that's the case, because we want to get a handle on how many people are good. They prefer to do it DIY style in their own backyards. So it's about 50-50 at this point. So we still are accepting more applications through February 4th. So it's only about the first, not even 2 weeks into our drive to get signups, and we're already, halfway there. But continue to spread the word. We want a lot of people to sign up.
I think you've done a great job promoting this, Vanessa.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. That's it for our regularly scheduled January monthly board meeting. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 8:20. Do I have a second? Thank you, Brant. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all. Please, everybody, stay warm, stay safe, protect yourself as best as possible, and we hope to see you all soon.